It's a nice table. It's one of those that would come to life in like a Disney movie.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a little burn mark right here.
It's from magic erasering, trying to get blueberries off.
Blueberries. Almost as cool as smoke. Like someone putting out a cigarette in it.
Almost as cool.
Yeah.
Just different.
Well, welcome to This One Time. Today my guest is Bethany Graver. I know her from... interesting. Went to the chop shop for lunch and you were in the corner and I think I was talking about some like hike or run or something you overheard.
You were wearing a Spartan shirt.
Oh, was I wearing this one or the gray one?
I think it was the gray one because that one's from this year, right? Or is that one from
this
last
one's
year?
from maybe 2 years ago now.
Maybe it was that one.
Yeah.
Either way, you were
cool.
wearing a Spartan shirt.
And you perked right up and we're like, oh, have you done any? You're like, I've done a ton. And we hit it off from there. And recently did a hike and I've been following a lot of your adventures. You just did the Superstition Ridgeline.
That's right.
Hike. And I just want to kind of pick your brain on what's kind of pushing you that way. And you're an entrepreneur, businesswoman. I mean, among other things, I know, and we're going to get into that. You want to write a children's book? Is that what I heard?
I do.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into it. Bethany Graver, welcome to This One Time.
Thank you. Good to be here.
All right. So let's just go to, my trajectory with you. And it's like, I came across you at the chop shop.
Right.
And there you performed, as a regional manager.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. I was at Chop Shop for almost 9 years. Was part of the growth of the brand. Started when there were 3 locations in Arizona.
Yeah.
And helped to open, at this point, there are 9 locations in Arizona. So I opened all of the 6 that weren't open when I started and was able to open the first location in Dallas, Texas, and just be a part of the growth and expansion of a startup restaurant brand into now 3 states and 5 markets. So
yeah.
Mesa, where you and I met,
Yes.
was the most recent store that had opened.
Yeah.
I think you and I were there at the same day, maybe a week or 2 after we had opened that restaurant.
It was that soon, right? Because I'm trying to remember what it was before that. I don't recall. But I know this. And maybe a message, since you're not with them anymore, a message to them. And just a misunderstanding in the friend I was with, one of my longtime customers, and he's an older gentleman. And he's like, chop shop. Yeah, I kind of want a pork chop.
Yep.
Did you get that a lot?
All the time. Yeah, pork chop. We would get people that would call that thought that we were selling used car parts or stolen car parts rather.
Get out of here.
But common misconception would people that would come in and think that we were going to serve steak or pork chops or we were a fine dining restaurant.
Yeah. Well, we enjoyed it. I mean, he took recommendations from the workers there and we had a very good meal. And it's a very fine establishment. But yeah, we thought it was funny. He was like, I don't see a pork chop anywhere on this menu.
No.
And I was like, well, Kimball.
Not going to find a pork chop at the chop shop.
So you were at one point overseeing, how many locations again? Was that 9?
I had 8. So there are 9 in Arizona. In 2019, we split the region in preparation for more growth.
Yeah.
So I went from 8 locations down to 4 locations.
Yeah.
I took the Southeast Valley. We split Southeast Valley and like North Phoenix and Scottsdale. So then my partner at the time took the north side. So I had Queen Creek, Mesa, Chandler, and then both Tempe. So I ended up with 5 restaurants after the split.
Yeah. And so did you see yourself running restaurants like that? Like wearing that hat?
Yeah, that was what I worked for. I went to school for kinesiology.
Gotcha.
Dropped out when someone...
And that's how the joints and the muscles all work together?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. Personal training was my goal. So always been into fitness and loved the idea of being a personal trainer. So I was pursuing that in college. And someone offered me a manager job at a restaurant since I was working in restaurants while I was in school.
Yeah.
and decided to take it, and then just dropped out of school and said, all right, this is a faster path. I enjoyed leadership. I enjoyed running things.
Mm-hmm. Felt checked
like
off
I
a
was
lot of
pretty
boxes
good
there.
at it. So I moved out here in 2000. I moved out here in 2000. I had been a personal trainer for about 6 months. I came from upstate New York.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd gone to college,
Canada,
dropped
right?
out.
I mean, you say upstate New York, but it's Canada, right?
Way closer to Canada than any other civilized part of New York. So, my town was the snowiest, still is the snowiest town,
Really?
like Guinness World Book of Records.
No way.
In America, maybe not the world, but
is it just for like days of snowfall, or is it inches?
I think it's most accumulated snow. I can't say that word. Too much coffee.
I can't either.
Yeah,
Hey, you brought up the coffee. Cheers.
Yes, cheers.
What do we call this?
I don't have a name for it. Maybe we can figure that out during the podcast. But coffee with cayenne and cinnamon.
Coffee with cayenne. I mean, so cayenne burns. Mm-hmm. Cinnamon, sin. We can definitely give it a dark name.
Yeah.
I'll throw something
figure
around
it out.
there. So you basically come from the place where all Hallmark Christmas movies are filmed then at that point.
Yeah, the small town where the big city guy goes and meets the girl. And I don't have any examples of that happening, but like the setting of it was definitely... My town was called Boonville.
Boonville.
Boonville. Okay. Population like 2,500, I think.
If you were to tell me you were from Boonville, I would automatically assume we're in the bayou somewhere in the South.
Yeah, it's funny. There's probably a Boonville in the bayou.
Yeah.
But mine was in the snow, in the frozen tundra.
So you dealt with snow for how many years of your life before you were like, I got to get out of here?
I mean, I knew I wanted to get out of there early.
Yeah.
I just never felt like that was my home. Mm-hmm. So, but I remember dreaming. I remember being in a chemistry class, I think in my sophomore year in high school.
Yeah.
And just being, angsty, teenage angst. Yeah. What am I going to, didn't like my parents, didn't like my town, felt like I was, in the wrong place. So I was dreaming of Arizona in my chemistry class. And then graduated, moved to Washington, D.C., went to college in Rockville, Maryland for about a year. My best friend from high school had moved to North Carolina. Her uncle was a civilian worker on the Marine Corps base. Uh-huh. So she met a Marine. She had moved down there, met a Marine. I came down to visit, met a Marine. We all fell madly in love with our Marines. Yeah. And then he got stationed. I moved to North Carolina for about a year, maybe a year and a half. And then he got stationed in Japan. Mm-hmm. So I visited him for a little bit, ended up back in upstate New York. Life just felt angsty again. So to make a long and probably more boring than interesting story shorter, I ended up out here in 2000, February 17th of 2000, I landed in Arizona.
2000. So so you were hunkering down there for Y2K. You're like, the world's going to end.
That's right.
I'm going to be in Boonville.
Yep.
And then it didn't. And you're like, okay, well, time to regroup.
I was not in a good place. My mental health was not good. Just needed a change.
Well, there's that seasonal depression, right? Mm-hmm. Is that what it's called? Seasonal?
Yeah, seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah, you're not getting enough sun, right?
Yeah.
So that really affects with your mood and your overall, mental stability. So that definitely has to influence it. And then you just come to like one of the sunniest places in the world.
Yeah, I only meant to be here for a year at that point.
Most people do.
I thought I'll go to Arizona, see what's going on, and see where my travels take me next. And then I just met some incredible people. I met a woman who I refer to as my Phoenix mom, who really helped me evolve beyond some toxic behaviors and, limited mindsets and things that had been holding me back. So I owe a lot of my growth to her. I still call her my Phoenix mom. Her name's Amelia, and met her and just ended up meeting some awesome people, and someone offered me the GM job at a little restaurant in downtown Phoenix called That's a Wrap.
Okay.
It was on 7th Street, McDowell. Healthy, fast casual concept, a little ahead of its fast casual concept time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had no business being a GM at that point. I think I was 23, and had a lot of growth to still do. But that was where I learned how to achieve results. So the owners of That's a Wrap at that point were very non-involved. So it was up to me. I just essentially had this blank canvas of what do I want to do? You know, the sales and the operations could have been better. And I had at that point had enough experience in restaurants to know what right looked like.
Yeah.
So I just set some goals and got after achieving them by, I don't even know how, because I had no training in that at that point. But was able to grow the business substantially. I don't remember all the numbers at this point, but I know we were doing like $300 or $400 a day when I first started.
And what year was this?
This was in 2000.
Yeah, so 2000, and like you said, it's ahead of its time just because, you know, healthy, I guess, options like that weren't just like the biggest. At that point, people were thinking Subway was healthy, right?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. So in their head, it's like, oh, I'll just go get a sub sandwich. Jared's telling me he's losing all this weight from eating sub sandwiches, right? So that I guess that's why it was ahead of its time and could have done more just because it wasn't in the zeitgeist yet to like, hey, your food, you are what you eat, right? In that sense. So yeah, you'd have to like find a place to remarket, a way to remarket and not rebrand, you know, because it's a wrap, right? That's the name. I mean, that's a wrap. Yeah, that's a wrap. I mean, that's a great name.
It is. It was clever. I mean, all the menu items had clever names to them as well. So it was a creative concept.
Yeah, but it would take a while for people to catch on and be like, why am I paying so much for, you know, I guess what some people would see like not a bang for my buck, because and I'm speaking as me, because if I go out to eat somewhere, and I've always thought this, I don't anymore, but like I always needed a hearty protein in every one of my meals, and it needed to feel heavy. I needed to be like for me, being satiated and having a good meal meant like I was,
interesting.
So I can imagine myself, especially, I mean, in 2000, I'm a little younger than you. I would have been like, why am I spending all this money on rabbit food, or, you know, something a little bit more simple,
sure.
Right? Not something that's going to sit heavy, especially me. I'm from a Hispanic background, you know, everything's, you know, grease and lard and tortillas and all this stuff, right?
High carbs.
Yes.
Lots of fat.
Oh yeah. I got it here.
You look great.
Thank you. I've been trying to follow your footsteps. And I'm going to come up with a name for this.
Okay.
But knowing you for the short time I've known you, I mean, you would have been a great person. So they saw, you know, something in you to be like, okay, this person might not have the experience. Like you said, I don't belong in this position, but you definitely had the mind and the strength to like, okay, let's hunker down and let's game plan this and achieve. You're definitely an achiever.
I definitely
am. Super achiever.
Which is sometimes
my
worst quality. But maybe not my worst quality, but it gets in my way.
Yeah. And the things that we really fixate on, I mean, they're great, and they're tools, and they can also become, you know, some sort of hindrances for relationships or you know, anything otherwise, you know. But when we're set on something, we're set. I mean, I'm thinking about last night, like, you know, me and my girlfriend are hanging out, and I'm just like, okay, like, let's kind of, you're going to wind down? Cool. I'm going to get to work over here. And I get to work doing a little t-shirt design that I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll sell this one day. And I'm just like on the computer, just drawing this Mexican sombrero wearing yogi. Like,
love it.
I'll show it to you when we're done.
I was going to say, I want to see that.
Yes, I'll show it to you. But yeah, it's like, we fixate on things, and it's just something that needs to get out of us. Like, you need to hit a trail.
Right.
Yeah, I got that inside me right now. I got to play a sport. I got to do this. There's things in us that need to come out just for the sake of coming out. Like, I need this out of me, or else I'm gonna internalize it, and it's become a bad habit, a worse habit. You know, I mean, if somebody's always on the trails, I mean, that could be a bad habit, but they could be doing something worse.
Definitely. You could be addicted to, you know, all sorts of drugs or any other not healthy habit.
Yeah.
But as we were talking about before we started this, and being on the trails every day without taking the proper amount of rest, or, you know, managing your flexibility also becomes a bad habit.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It does. And to me, flexibility is everything, is my longevity. Because I think if I can be flexible in the body, I can be flexible in the mind and ideas, and entertain all these different philosophies and, you know, incorporate it into my own perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what
how you do anything is how you do everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I forget who says that, but yeah, how you do and it's quite true. I want to say it's not, right? It's like, oh, I care, you know, there's certain things I really care about. And I guess, you know, there's degrees to that, but as a whole, you could generalize, you know, if someone is phoning it in here, what else are you not really whole assing, and you're just half assing?
Yeah. It becomes the way of doing things.
Yeah. So we hiked Paestawa not too long ago, and then you told me about this Superstition Mountains Ridgeline hike that you just did.
That's right.
How did you not prepare for it? And tell me how it went.
Okay. I've done the Flatiron a bunch. Like
awesome hike.
Maybe 30 times at this point.
Wow.
So, and every time I'm up there, I look over. You've done the Flatiron, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about that.
Yeah.
So you're on the top and you can see over, I don't remember, 5034 or what the mountain, what the number is of the peak that's right behind the Flatiron, if you're facing Gold Canyon. But
like the peak itself?
Yeah, but not Superstition Peak, but you're on the Flatiron, and then you look over behind where those, you know, the spires are that are on top of the Flatiron. And there's a little circular peak that's behind there. And I've ventured a little bit of the way there twice. I've done the Flatiron more alone at this point than I have with other people, and I've gotten myself into some pretty precarious spots. So one time I was like, "Oh, it can't be that far. I'll just walk over there." And I went off. I mean, there's no trail up there, right? So I took a path that looked like it may get me to where I was trying to go, and then lost my footing. I was maybe, I don't know, 200 feet from the edge, and everything was all loose rock.
Whoa.
And I ended up having to grab a cactus to keep from falling over the edge.
Dude.
Got a handful of cactus that hurt like a bitch for...
Probably not as much as falling 200 feet off the ledge.
This is good perspective. I don't know how I hadn't thought of that. But yeah, you're right. That hurt a lot less than falling off the edge. But anyway, I was like, okay, maybe I'll just not do that. Oof. So I started looking for people that would do. And at that point, I didn't even know that there was a Superstition Ridgeline trail itself, I thought it was all, because the way that I'd been introduced to the Flatiron was that after Siphon Draw, there's no trail, and you are making your way to the top. And then anything up there is just no man's land. Yeah. And it's up to you, like adventure at your own risk.
Yes.
So, but I got down, I told somebody about it, and they told me about the Ridgeline hike, the trail. So I looked it up on All Trails and saw, what was involved in hiking that.
What is the distance?
So All Trails has it marked at 11 miles. But everybody that's left a review and our experience is that it's about 14 miles.
Okay.
But you lose the trail so many times up there, regardless of how well it's marked, I mean, it's not marked very well, but if you follow, we had a signal a lot of the time, not all of the time, but a lot of the time.
You know, it's surprising. I was going to mention that a little bit earlier because when I did it and went off trail, I was FaceTiming with my kids at the top, at the very peak of so right behind Flatiron and that Superstition Peak. Perfect reception. I was like, guys, check this out. FaceTiming, like it is awesome.
Yeah, most of the time you're connected and the GPS signal works, and as long as you're, you know, looking at the trail, then you're following the trail. But there were many times where there was like a different trail, like somebody thought to themselves, I'll go this way instead. And I guess enough people did that to make it look like a trail, or it was an alternative trail.
And you don't need a whole lot. I mean, when you're out there and there's no sign of a trail and you just see like maybe 10 sets of footprints that went this way, you're like, okay, that looks like enough of okay, it must be this way.
Yeah. And then it's not.
And then you realize it's 5 sets because they went that way and then backtracked.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's been 3/4 of a mile that you've been following this not trail.
Oh man.
So you do that enough times and that'll add up to 14 miles.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I think we hit 14.2 miles total by the time we had dropped a car off at the Kearney Springs trailhead in Gold Canyon.
Okay.
And then drove over to Lost Dutchman, parked there, hiked there.
Smart.
And then when we got down Kearney Springs, which is the worst trail. I will never do that trail again.
Whoa, why?
It was absolutely god awful. Maybe I would do it going up, although that feels like it would be equally as arduous and unpleasant, but
loose footing on the way down.
It's a 35-foot descent was the way we did it. 3,500-foot descent over 2 miles.
Ooh, okay.
And nothing. I mean, we needed hiking poles, and
wow.
I have hiking poles, but I've never found the value in them, so I didn't bring them. But it took us 2 hours to do 2 miles, and it was dusk, and so there's rattlesnakes are coming out, and you know we weren't sure if we were going to get back to the car by dark, and you know we'd run out of food at that point. I brought too much water, not enough food. Should have brought hiking poles. I don't know what else I would do different at this point. Like 10 out of 10 will do that again.
Yeah.
I won't probably, I think if I were to do it again, I would go up Kearney Springs or up Peralta.
Gotcha.
And down Flatiron.
Okay.
So that would be what I would do differently.
Yeah.
But
just because by the time you get to that trail, is it Kearney?
Kearney Springs. Yeah.
Kearney Springs. By that time, I mean, you're 10 miles in, right?
I mean, we were 12.
Yeah, 12.
At
there
that
you go.
point. But
so not only is it really tough, dangerous, but it's at the end.
Oh yeah, you're gassed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally gassed. So.
What kind of internal dialogue did you battle?
So I was with a friend of mine who's a relatively new friend. I met her, I believe, in July of this past year. And she's wonderful. And I knew, we both knew that we didn't really know what we were getting into, but, we haven't spent a tremendous amount of time together. We Instagram message each other and text message and have done a couple of things. We've done some hikes together, but this was going to be a big undertaking. Mm-hmm. So, my internal dialogue when things got, I think it was probably around mile 10 when I started to feel, you just hit that wall, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. And, I knew that, All Trail says 11 miles, but we're barely at the Superstition peak at that point.
Yeah.
So there's no way that it's 11 miles at this point.
Yeah.
And I think it was maybe around 3:00 in the afternoon. So we have 3.5 hours until the sun sets. And I have a lot more, I've hiked the Superstitions so many times, never the Ridgeline, but I felt like I needed to keep the energy up for both of us, even though she held her own. She was fantastic. I couldn't have asked for a better hiking partner for such an unknown, challenging hike as that one.
Yeah.
But my internal dialogue was really about keeping my spirits up and being a good leader for the two of us, since I had the more experience in the Superstitions. Mm-hmm. And just staying positive, really. I mean, it was that we'd keep losing the trail, and
and it was getting dark. Were you did you have like a headlamp? Were you prepared to be out there that long?
Because it was light when we started, and we thought maybe 8 hours tops.
Yeah,
it took us 12 hours total.
Whoa.
But we had the whole afternoon planned out. We were going to get down. We were going to go get food. We were going to go. She lives at the Optima Apartments, so she's got sauna and cold plunge on the roof. So we were going to get food, take it up to the rooftop at her apartments, and just, recover and talk about the day.
Yeah.
And then instead, we got down almost exactly at sunset and still had an hour drive to get back to the side of town.
Yeah.
So we ended up just going to True Food, looking like a couple of hobos.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we ordered everything on the menu and didn't even talk to each other. Just sat there with a table full of food. And all the servers are looking at us like we look like hell. We've just hiked 14 miles.
You guys walk in, they're probably like, oh, they're just going to want some water and some free chips. And then you're like, give me one of everything on the menu.
Actually, we're going to order $200 worth of food
Yeah,
right
exactly.
now.
We're going to prepay and pre-tip. Like, just keep it coming.
Just keep it coming. It was so funny. But so we planned for an 8-hour hike. It didn't go that way at all. But
the lessons. And here's what I noticed in first hikes. You don't know what to expect, so your anxiety level is a little bit higher, and your perception and the information that you're processing is a little bit more heightened. So I think you're burning a little bit more calories and a little bit more like of your spirit per se.
Definitely.
In that moment just of the unknown, because I bet you if you go back and do it again, you know what to expect. You know where you can push yourself a little bit because, hey, over this little bit, it's gonna calm down. So the first hikes are always definitely the toughest.
That's true. I agree with that. I don't remember exactly my first time with the Flatiron, but I've done the Grand Canyon a bunch as well. And I mean, I remember the ascent on the first time doing the Grand Canyon thinking, oh my God, I still have like 2 miles to the top. I'm just going to live here because I can't see.
And it's so deceiving because there's, I want to say like 4 different levels of the tiers to the Grand Canyon, of like the rock change and this like 4 major levels. And when you're in them, you can't tell which one's which, and you can't even see the last ones. So when you see this little ridge, you're like, okay, I just got to get up there. And then you get there, and then you're like, oh no, there's still another 2 or 3 I got to get to. Like it's defeating.
It is.
It's a little bit of,
you got to dig deep.
Eats your soul a little bit.
It is like you put one foot in front of the other foot in front of the other foot, and you just have to focus on that. Which is one of my favorite metaphors between hiking and life. Yeah,
just one foot in front of the other, which is what I told my son on the 10-mile hike, or the ruck that we just did. And I'm just like, dude, I was like, you can always take one more step, unless your body does start to fail, one more step. Okay, can I take one more step? Yes. I have one more step? Yes. Yeah, unless your body just goes, unless you got a Baker's cyst.
Yeah.
Which thank you for that. No,
that'll slow you down.
Did I tell you what people asked me? There was 2 hikers that were coming down on the touristy side, Bright Angel on Grand Canyon. I tell you what they asked me when I was coming out. So we're done. We had the previous day we did South Rim to North Rim, camped, woke up the next morning, did North Rim to South Rim, right? And they told us, like, when you're almost out of the Grand Canyon because all the hikers all of a sudden smell really good. They're dressed in casual clothes. Yeah. Because that's the tourist. Flip-flops. Yes, exactly. Because they hike down maybe, a half mile, take a few pictures, then go back out. So when you're approaching the end. And we were there, and I was with my buddy Sandbag, and he was like, man, I really wanted to finish this by 3:30. And I'm like, dude, we got 2.5 miles or 3 miles to go. I was like, let's go. And he's like, I can't, I don't have it in me. I was like, no, let's go. So I was pushing him. And at that point, I told myself, we're going to do it. And he started falling behind. And I was like, it's in my head. I got to go. So I was going, huffing. And man, there was a couple of times where I thought I was going to collapse. But you just keep going. Mm-hmm. And I think I made it like 3 minutes after 3:30.
Nice.
So still, I was like, okay, I fucking did the damn thing. But on the last turn, and I have it on video because I was recording, I was like, I saw that, it was like the last turn is like maybe 50, 60 yards or so, maybe a whole football field to get out. But there's a big sign here, and there's signs everywhere at the Grand Canyon. It says going down is optional, hiking back out is not. There is nothing down there to get you back out other than your own 2 legs. So enter at your own risk. And so there's this big sign, and they're looking at it, and it's like this whole layout of Phantom Ranch and everything, right? And this couple looks at me, and I'm just like, dude, I just hiked almost 50 miles over 2 days. And they're like, hey, are you coming from the bottom? And I'm like, yeah, because my throat is untaxed at that point. Yeah, I came from the bottom. Well, yeah, kind of explain that we did render. They're like, okay, cool. Yeah, so when you get down there, like, how do you get out? And I go, well, you just pick a trail and get out. And they're like, oh, we have to hike out? I was like, yeah. He's like, there's no like train or tram or trolley. I was like, no. And I just walked away from them. I was like, the audacity. I'm at the end of my hike, and they're just like, hey, how do you, if we hike down there, how do you get out? I was like, walk your little bitch ass out.
What? Tram. The Grand Canyon tram. Yeah, everybody knows about the tram.
Yeah.
Did you not hear about the tram?
You
chose to walk out of there?
Yeah, one way to get out there by machine, and it's probably like a $10,000 helicopter ride.
There used to be donkeys that would take you.
Yeah. I didn't see anybody on those other than the people delivering supplies and mail to the bottom and back out. And man, you would think it's a group of donkeys. I think it was horses, and I think there was some cows. And you hear them coming up behind you. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of shit on the trail.
Yeah, there is. Big shit.
Big shit. There's a ton. And you're like, you hear them behind you, it's like, oh, I'm fine. Like I can, they're going slow. They're big fat cows. And do they catch you and pass you like that? Mm-hmm. They're animals.
And they do it every day. So.
Yeah, that's true. They're honed in for it. So you've done the Grand Canyon how many times?
4 times.
4 times.
Yes. And now planning to do my friend Maria that did the Superstition Ridgeline. I think we decided for February of 2025. We're going to do rim to rim to rim.
Yeah, hell yeah. Mm-hmm. Are you going to, so we camped out that one night. Are you trying to bang it out at one whole go, or how have you guys thought about it?
We haven't done all of the details yet around that, but I think we'll probably camp.
Yeah, that sunset on the north end was awesome.
Yeah. I bet.
Yeah, it was.
What time of year did you do it?
September, late September.
Okay.
It was pretty cold over there, especially on the north end. I mean, I think it was down to like 35, 36 in the middle of the night. It was rough. Yeah, not the best for your muscles after hiking 24 or 23 miles that it is from the south to the north. But when you have someone right next to you in the suck,
yeah, it's helpful.
You embrace and you're like, okay, they're hurting just like me. Mm-hmm. Let's go.
Yeah, and then each of you has to kind of be the leader for the other two. So, so that's good.
Yeah, that's good. I'm excited for you. Back to the restaurant business, because you have a whole lot of knowledge in that. One of my friends who's in the workout group, and he does a lot of marathons, Alex, he is a chef. And he said the moment he stepped into the kitchen, because he's like, all these people out here, and he does acting now, so he equates it to like the bar, the staff, right? The wait staff. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's the actors. Mm. He's like, the guys behind the kitchen, that's the production team, and everybody's cool. Everybody.
Love that analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, that's where it's like, as soon as I stepped into a kitchen, it was like, wow, this is what I want to be a part of. Did you kind of experience a little bit of that when you started, where you're like, hey, the thing about chefs and kitchens, I mean, they're artists in their own right? And every artist, and for the most part, they're a ragtag bunch. I mean, they're, to some people, it's they're rebels, in that sense, and that's appealing to a lot of us, and I say us too, just because I've always been like a fairly good rule follower, and so like when you see somebody that's just like, I don't give a fuck, you know, there's something cool about that.
Yeah, the cool factor. I mean, as the manager of the ragtab, I don't give a fuck people. I have a different perspective, but
Yes.
yeah, I don't think it was until I started working so I left That's a Wrap. I want to say in 2002. Met a guy, moved to Mesa with him, started working at Outback Steakhouse. Mm-hmm. And I was working at the one on Superstition Springs Boulevard, which at that time, like that was Outback Steakhouse. That was their prime. They were in the upper echelons of the steakhouse, you know, chain business then. And the proprietor of the one that I worked at was, he still is a mentor to me and dear friend of mine, but I learned so much from him about hospitality.
Yeah.
So that was when I think before I was in restaurants because it was easy money. And then people said, hey, you've got leadership qualities. And I was like, oh, I do have leadership qualities. So then, you know, all of a sudden I was handed these leadership roles, which I liked.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I worked at Outback that I discovered that I had a heart for hospitality and I enjoyed hospitality. But it took a leader that also had that same mindset and heart set to bring that out in me. And then I went from Outback Steakhouse to Starbucks in 2005, and I was with Starbucks until 2013.
Did you have to dye your hair blue?
I did not. That was before those days.
Gotcha.
This was when, and a big part of the reason why I wanted to work at Starbucks. I resisted the idea forever because I was a huge fan of Starbucks. I was a 2-time a day caramel macchiato girl.
Yeah.
I didn't want to work. Everybody's like, you should work for Starbucks. And I was like, I don't want to ruin the magic. Right.
Yeah.
But, somehow or other, I decided to start working for Starbucks and met, the district manager of my district at that point. Her name is Trisha, and she is also still mentor, dear friend of mine.
Nice.
And a phenomenal leader. One of the best leaders I've ever read about or had the opportunity to learn from. And both the Starbucks mission at that point, I think, was to inspire and nurture the human spirit. There's more to it, but that's all I remember. And wanting to be a part of what they were doing at that point, which was creating a third place for people, like, something that wasn't home, it wasn't work, but where they felt important, they felt valued. And that just really spoke to me, and her leadership really spoke to me. And so I was at Starbucks until 2013 and learned, we were just having this conversation a couple of days ago, Trisha and myself, that someone else that she had worked with had brought up that it was like a masterclass for leadership, for hospitality, for operations.
Revolutionary company. I mean, they really were
Absolutely.
for the coffee game.
I don't really subscribe to what they do now, and because a lot of it's very transactional. And there was a time where we turned the corner from creating a third place in the cafe and really, focusing on your customers and understanding who they were and treating them like everybody was a VIP. And then the narrative changed and it became transactions, like your ticket times at the window had to be 30 seconds and make sure you make people feel important, but don't spend too long doing that because you gotta keep it moving.
Yep.
So I left right as they were really kind of changing the operations to be more transactional than it was focused on customers. So I left there. I spent 10 months after Starbucks. I went to work for T-Mobile, thinking that I wanted out of hospitality. I just didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted something different. I knew several of my leadership friends at Starbucks that had left and gone to T-Mobile. They had a new CEO at that point, was revolutionizing the mobile industry. Yeah. He was a very inspirational leader.
Yeah, they did, right? Because that was 13, 14 or so?
Yep. Yeah, 2013. Yeah. His name escapes me right now, but anyway, so I went to work for T-Mobile. It was not a fit for me. It was, I have a lot of respect for the leadership there. I learned a lot while I was there, a lot about things that I probably wouldn't have learned anywhere else. But ultimately, I just decided about 10 months in that it was not a fit for me. Yeah. And my Starbucks boss had Chop Shop in Chandler had just opened, and she lived close to that one. So she'd been to Chop Shop a couple of times, and she said, you should really check out this Chop Shop place.
And you're like, I know nothing about pork chops.
Yeah. I'm like, I think I was a vegan then, or a vegetarian. Yeah. Either way, I didn't eat pork chops, but I was like, yeah, sure. Let's check it out. Was not impressed. The customer service experience was lackluster.
Ooh, did you almost go in like an undercover boss at that point, or? I
went in with she thinks that I should check this place out. So let's see what she sees in it. And I thought the menu was interesting. I thought the decor, the vibe was good, except that the people that were serving the guests had no connection to hospitality. Gotcha. And it just didn't click for me. And then maybe a week later, I was at the Santan Brewery with another friend of mine who is a Starbucks manager. And she had mentioned, I had said that I was on the hunt for a new job, and I was considering going back into restaurants, even though at that point I was still kind of afraid to admit that that's what I wanted to do. Yeah. But I think a part of it was I was super unhappy in the mobile industry. Yeah. I wasn't sure what else I wanted to do, but what was familiar to me, what felt comfortable and safe, was to go back into restaurants. But I wasn't ready to say that out loud yet.
Because you're a person that wants to challenge yourself, so you don't want to say, hey, I want to fall back on this. But when it speaks to you on a different level, on such a level where it's like more fulfilling, then you're not really falling back on it. You're just going right back to...
You're going back to what, your roots or what is right. So...
Yeah, going right back to Boonville.
So she... Not quite. Maybe someday, but not yet. So my friend said, have you thought about Chop Shop? And I was like, weird that you would mention that. Ooh. And she was also a little ready to move on from Starbucks at that point, and said that she had interviewed for the GM job of, I think, the Tempe ASU shop. And one of the other reasons I didn't want to go back to restaurants was I didn't want to work late nights. Yeah. I didn't want that coming home at 2 a.m, dealing with drunk people. I didn't want any of that. But she said that she had interviewed for the GM role of the Chop Shop, and that the hours were 7 to 3, Monday through Friday. I was like, that can't be right. Yeah, exactly. There's no GM restaurant in the world that works 7 to 3, Monday through Friday.
Let me pull the wool from your eyes.
Exactly. But she was adamant, and she's not a crazy person. So I was like, she's like, you should definitely check it out. I said, okay. I don't remember why she wasn't pursuing it at that point, but I left there and I was like, all right, let me go home and check this out. So I went home, I opened up my email. I happened to notice, or I think I was looking on Indeed or something, and a couple of weeks prior, when I had first decided that my discomfort meant that it was time to look for something else, I had just started blasting out applications. Yeah. And I had applied to a job posting that was it said coffee shop manager. And I had applied to that because I was like, oh, I know coffee. I have Starbucks. I know all about coffee. I can do that. So I looked at it a little bit closer, and I had actually applied to the GM role for Chop Shop, and they had it listed as a coffee shop. Oh, okay. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pull this thread since now it's shown up 3 times. Yeah. So I called the Old Town Scottsdale location, asked to talk to the GM, got on the phone with the GM. I was like, hey, I'm going to apply to the open GM position. Can you just tell me a little bit about, your role and how you like the company? And he had been part of Old Town was the very first Chop Shop. So he was the first GM, and had worked for the owners that now they sold the business, but they were the original owners. He'd worked for them for a number of years before that. Yeah. So he had nothing but positive things to say. And I just ended up chasing down the owners and ended up with the job and started back in hospitality on June 14th of 2014.
Yeah. And hospitality is there's so many routes that can also take you. Because once you know the way, well, generally you know it, every which way, right? So you can apply that rule to any in Denver that you kind of get
Definitely.
into, which I think we talked about on our hike that you are doing that with one of your friends, right? Doing some life coaching. Mm-hmm. And can we talk about that?
Sure, definitely.
Yeah. So you guys, are you guys going in on one kind of company, or you guys are just kind of partnered with your own, or how's it go?
So I left Chop Shop June 8th of this past year. So just 1 week shy of my 9-year Chopiversary, as we said, in the biz. Again, in this moment where I'm ready to explore something new, wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So I had consulted with a friend of mine that I trust, and just said, I need to think a little bit bigger than where my mind is right now. And he's someone that is all about thinking big. So he's like, I have 2 suggestions for you. One is to come to Venture Cafe Phoenix. And the other is to get involved in the Change Agents Academy, which he is a personal development program that he co-founded with a mutual friend of ours, and had been bugging me to get involved in, but I just had not had the time. So I immediately started going to Venture Cafe Phoenix, which is an entrepreneurial networking group, happens every Thursday. People come from all different areas.
Yeah. Is that the one you say you went on a hike with one of the members? Is that you guys kind of get out to, do some in-person and extracurricular activities to get to know each other?
That's a different networking group that I joined called BNI, that I joined just this past December.
Hope you're taking notes on all these awesome groups, guys.
Yes. I can't say enough about it's intimidating and awkward and very time consuming to network and to get involved in all these networking groups. But I mean, you meet people from all different, industries and walks of life, and get to really learn more about how many other people there are out there than in in my experience. I've been mostly restaurants. So I've really enjoyed all of the different networking groups. But in the Venture Cafe Phoenix, I initially met my now business partner, Alex. Although we didn't really connect until we both ended up in the same Change Agents Academy cohort. Mm-hmm. And so we were in a room together. The Change Agents Academy gives you some exercises that you work through each week that help you to understand, where do you have some limiting beliefs, or where are you holding yourself back? And to push through those and to, achieve more than you thought you could. Yeah. So I was kind of just spitballing in this room. I don't remember the subject matter that the assignment for that week, but I know that I was just kind of talking about how I had judgments about life coaches ever since I heard somebody say they were a life coach, right? And I think that first person that I ever heard say they were a life coach was not in a good place. Yeah. And very young. And I was like, what on earth could you possibly have to coach people on? But anyway, formed a judgment, held on to that. But I mean, truthfully, that's where my heart was calling me, was to coach people, I feel like I've done a lot of, internal work, especially in the last 10 years of my life, and been in a pressure cooker for the last 3 or 4 years of my life with pandemic and, just, things that have popped up that I've had the choice to either work through or shove down and, numb out with substances or whatever. And I've chosen to say, all right, let's get through this. And on the other side of that, and how do I become a better leader and just, achieve the level of leadership and mentorship that I've had the benefit of learning from. So I wanted to be able to offer that, and thought that with my experience in leadership in restaurants, which a lot of was coaching people to move beyond perceived barriers and limitations, right? And especially through the pandemic, the way that we were able to, Chop Shop did really well through the pandemic. I think we all, learned a lot about what we could do, whereas a lot of organizations that I saw were more focused on what they couldn't do, right? Like this is what we can't do as a restaurant group because of all these, rules and restrictions that there are.
Yeah.
And Chop Shop instead was like, well, let's see what we can do, and let's see how we can, offer more value and maximize it. And maximize that. So that was good for business, and it was also, I think it like really helped to expand my mind into how to move beyond big challenges like that, right?
The yes and.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Love that.
This is the new problem. Yes, and this is how we're gonna move forward with it. Yeah,
exactly.
If someone's bringing you a critique, okay, accept it. Yes, and let's move along for it. Instead of saying, nah, you don't understand because blah 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 blah. Now you're setting up your own barriers, right?
Yeah, all of them are our own barriers, right? Yeah. Like even if somebody says, you have to be 6 feet from somebody, and we interpret that as being, well, I have to isolate, right? Well, I mean, there's so many other people figured it out with Zoom and, the virtual connection. And I mean, there were so many people climbing up mountains with masks on and hand sanitizer and gloves and, just trying to follow the rules, but also explore what their options were rather than sit in their house and isolate or, just accept the limitations that had been given to them. So I saw a lot of great stuff in human nature, I think, during the pandemic. So I really wanted to offer that to people in a different way. I wanted to discard the things of the restaurant business. I've gotten to the point where I don't really like it when people say this, but I'm going to say it because this is my narrative in June of last year is I'm tired of the grind, right? Every day I wake up to a multitude of text messages about this restaurant's walk-in cooler is down and this restaurant had 3 cooks quit and this restaurant's manager is giving notice and, just trying to manage all of those operational pieces had become, it wasn't fun for me anymore. And I just wanted something different. But what I loved was the leadership and my team and helping, them not just achieve success in business and achieve the goals that they had set for themselves. But also, most of my team was with me for years. Yeah. So they'd gone through divorces. Exactly. They'd had children. They'd been sick or their family had been sick. And, the things that happen in life that I was able to, help them work through as well.
That's the measure of it. Because, you can be a great manager in the store. It's running great. The restaurant's running great. But how are your people there? Like when they're not there, when they're outside of it, are you able to give them tools and, allow them ways to maybe re-examine their situations and then, give them a helping hand with the years of your experience to that.
Yeah.
So your life training at that point, when you're running and you're overseeing multiple, restaurants and businesses, that sneaks in. Before you realize it, you're like, okay, I'm doing a little bit more than just what the job is.
Well, and going back to the yes and is that rarely do we have this moment where we get to just put life aside as we're going through a breakup or a divorce or having a baby or, any number of life. It doesn't have to be bad, but you get married. Life happens and you don't always get to say, I'm going to take some time off from work. Sometimes you can, but you don't always get the chance to say that. So I was just actually having this conversation yesterday with my boyfriend about feeling like I'm like in this moment of evolution and having to I'm going through a lot of stuff right now, a lot of, I want to say rebirth without making it sound too big or,
I'll let you say it, rebirth.
All right. So I'm rebirthing a lot of pieces of myself right now. And it's gut wrenching. And I also am in the hustle of entrepreneurship. So I get up and I'm like, I don't feel like doing this, right? Like, I don't feel like the hustle today.
But people will see you and they'll be like, oh, she's ran, all these restaurants. She's fit. She's out there, tackling mountain ridge lines and Spartan races. It's like, oh, she's just made for this. She just wants to get up and do this. And it's like, you don't realize it's the same for everybody. You get up and you're like, I don't want to do this. But I think the regret and the crappy feeling of your inaction is going to eat you. And even if you say, no, it's not, it'll eat you more than oh, maybe I overreacted, or maybe I did this too soon, or this and that. You find out, there's no harm in knowing. So you get up and we do it, even though it looks easy. It looks easy for us. And that's why, like, I try to share photos of me when I was, 60 pounds heavier and drinking all the time. And, I was happy in a sense, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled, and so it's like, it's not easy. It's still work, but it's the good work. It's the good work.
It's not easy to be 60 pounds overweight,
no.
Right? Like, there's so much that you can't do when you're 60 pounds overweight, or that takes a lot more to do than when, it's choose your hard kind of
exactly.
Thing, right?
Yeah, it's going to be hard no matter what.
It's going to be hard no matter what. So it is
make it your choice, your active choice.
And one of the, I do a gratitude list every single day. And one of the things that shows up there the most often is I am grateful for the discipline that I have cultivated, so that when I don't feel like doing things, like, a lot of the times it's my discipline that drives me to the gym. It's my discipline that drives me to the mountain. There isn't motivation.
No, motivation, right? Comes and goes.
Motivation's crap.
Yeah.
Like, that maybe 5% of the time do I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I can't wait to do leg day. It's like, no, I never want to do leg day.
Yeah.
But when I'm done with leg day, I don't always feel like a badass, and I know that the next day is going to suck, but I feel like I have that confidence that comes from doing the thing that is good for you, even if you don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people wait for the motivation.
Yeah.
And I saw that over and over again with people that were on my team. Those that made it, they would do the thing that they didn't want to do, and then eventually get to the other side and be like, oh, I'm so grateful. And the people that didn't make it were like, this is too hard, I can't do it, right? Yeah. Like, unreasonable expectations that you want me to come to work when I don't feel like coming to work. It's like, I need a day off. Like, we just had 2. Well, all right, take the 3rd, and I'm going to go ahead and look for somebody that is going to come to work when they say they are.
Yeah, accountability.
So as I'm spitballing in the conversation in the change agents room, where my now business partner, her name is Alex. I had met her. She's the director of events for Venture Cafe. So I like briefly met her there, but we didn't really talk or anything. And then I was talking about how I wanted to be a life coach, but didn't feel like I was qualified. I don't have a degree in psychology. I'd been in restaurants my whole life, and she sat right up and started talking. She was like, well, actually, can I offer you a different perspective?
Yeah.
And told me a little of her story, which was that she had been in a corporate job for, a bunch of years, maybe 11 years. And during the pandemic, she had been laid off, and instead of going and finding another corporate job, she decided to start Elemental Life, which is a life coaching business. Elemental means to nourish or provide the materials for growth. So, and her name is Alex. Yeah. So she started Elemental Life. She offered me, shortly after that conversation that we had coffee and talked about life coaching.
Yeah.
She offered me a contract position to come and work as a 1099 contractor under the Elemental Life brand, where I didn't need to create my own LLC or start my own business or figure it all out. I could work under the brand, use all of the branding that she had in place, and mentor with her on, what life coaching looked like. So in September, I signed a contract with her, and we just off to the races with all the different ideas that we could do with the brand. And in January, we branched Elemental into 3 different branches of the brand. Now we have Elemental Life, which is life and wellness coaching, Elemental Business, which is consulting. She and I are both love business as well. And that was one thing that I realized over the last several months that I've missed is being, in that business mind.
Yeah.
And helping business owners solve problems. And in my networking endeavors, I've met so many small business owners and either aspiring entrepreneurs or active entrepreneurs who have had a brilliant idea and they've gained access to funds, but they don't know how to run a business and they fail or they struggle. So it occurred to me that, I could do both. I could be in life and wellness coaching, and I could also do business consulting and help people understand how to make a plan and, what the...
Because also you're an example. So you might say, I don't have the psychology degree to really analyze these people and this and that. But one, you can outsource, if that's exactly what this person needs, I'll find you the person, this and that. Because there's an immense value in having that network. If you're a person that, hey, I'm going to go to Bethany because, either she can give me the information or she can find me the person.
Exactly.
So, right.
Yes.
So it's one or the other. Either I'm your person or I will find you the person to do that. But also it's like, you're an example, like you're buckling down, you're doing the work, you're doing what needs to be done because you're determined, not motivated. Motivation comes and goes. And so you are an example that people can see and be like, okay, well, I can trust this person because they are their words in action. Totally see that. What's the third aspect of it? So life, business,
Life Skills Lab.
Gotcha.
So Life Skills Lab, we are in the process of, we just started a nonprofit. It was an extension of Elemental Life before I even joined the brand, something that Alex came up with in 2021. Basically just offering classes or workshops around fundamental skills that you don't learn in school. And if your parents aren't engaged or knowledgeable in these areas, then you're not learning them at home either. So, everything from how to file your taxes to how to apply for college, fill out a college application or understand your medical benefits if you get a job that gives you benefits. Basic car maintenance, basic house maintenance, all sorts. There's 41 courses that we have right now.
Wow.
Alex had worked she'd put some of these courses into action in 2021, but was really hard to monetize because the majority of people that found value in these weren't able to pay for them. Yeah. So when I joined Elemental in September and we started, I was looking through everything that she'd had and she brought up Life Skills Lab and immediately piqued my interest. And I thought, well, how do we get, let's not charge people. Instead, let's get
practical
funding for this.
And you have a familiarity with people that need it the most from running your restaurants.
Definitely.
You're like, man, this person needs it the most, but they can't afford it. So get some funding for it.
Yep.
What steps have you guys taken in that sense?
So we have we partnered with a grant writer that goes to Venture Cafe frequently, and she has several nonprofits. She's been writing grants and starting nonprofits for I don't know how many years, but she's wonderful. Her name's Carol Farabee, and she has kind of taken us under her wing. So nice. We actually spent all day last Tuesday with her filling out this incredibly intimidating 32-page workbook about why our business is a good business, to, how we're going to add value to the community, how are we going to measure success. I thought I was really smart business person going into writing this.
Until you start asking the government for stuff, right?
Yes, so intimidating. So really grateful for her partnership and leadership through this. And we decided to turn it to a nonprofit. So we finished the workbook this Thursday. We're most of the way done, but we have time set aside for Thursday where we're going to finish the workbook. And then we cannot apply for grants for 2 years as a new nonprofit.
Gotcha. Okay.
But one of Carol's nonprofits is going to fund ours. So we're going to apply for all the grants that we need through her nonprofit, and her nonprofit is going to fund ours.
Yeah. So you're not postponing all the great work you guys can do 2
Right.
years out because you're like, we're going to be dead in the water if we can't get this.
Yeah, we need to get it going. And I mean, it's definitely a source of income for both Alex and I too, because it's very time consuming.
Yeah.
So we're a lot of people that have a brilliant idea and a heart for service that start a nonprofit, where they fail is that they don't think about how they're going to pay themselves.
Yes.
They try to do it on the side of whatever they're doing. And most of the time, you know, they don't have the luxury of being single with no kids. Right. And they, you know, they just can't get it. They either can't get it off the ground or they can't move the process forward. So, so we, again, like really grateful to have Carol to guide us through the process and help us understand what all of the different steps to starting the nonprofit.
And that's epic. I mean, that's from that community that you guys have, the group, the networking group, right?
Yeah, we met Carol through that. We have an attorney now as well who very well versed in nonprofits. So he's offered us pro bono guidance to, you know, to make sure that we're following all the processes the right way and getting to success, you know, in the path of least resistance. So,
man, that's huge. And that's the beauty of networks like that. Like, makes me want to get involved.
I heard, I'm a big podcast person. I love listening to podcasts. And on one that I was listening to a couple weeks ago, I think I listened to this podcast 7 times because it just had so many, so many golden nuggets for entrepreneurship, for business, and for life. And the guy was talking about there being 2 different basic mindsets. There's the reptilian mindset, which is I have a problem and I'm going to just freak out about it and I'm going to obsess about how I have a problem, right? And then there's the visionary mindset that understands that the solution to my problem is only a couple of conversations away, right? Like somebody woke up this morning with the resources that I need to solve my problem. Yeah. And so all I have to do is find out where that person is. And maybe it's going to require a couple of conversations or a couple of emails or a Google search, or, you know, it's not going to be totally free of work and effort on my end, but, you know, the unproductive time spent in obsessing about the problem that you have. And I don't want to sound like I've got that all figured out, because the reason I listened to it 7 times is because I may have a propensity to think about my problem, right? And forget that I can, you know, find the solution. So, but that is one thing that the networking has provided me with, is more like when I heard him say that, I was like, oh yeah, I mean, I've met literally hundreds of people at this point since last June, between Venture Cafe Phoenix, the BNI group that I go to, and some other, you know, one-off networking groups that I found on like Meetup. Yeah. Hundreds of people that could be potential solutions to the problem that I have, and that I can be the solution to their problem. Right. So that's been a pretty magical revelation. Yeah.
It's literally 1 or 2 conversations away from that. I love that. People reach out to me all the time for stuff like in the music industry, you know, just because I'm in instrument sales. You know, people reach out to me for like diet stuff. I was like, yo, I'm not the diet guy at all. Like, I know I might look all right, you know, and, you know, I try to be fit and all that, but I'm not the guy to like diagnose and say, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not, hey, this is what you need. Like go seek some serious help. But I would love to connect you with people like that.
Well,
like
I am a certified nutritionist.
There you go.
So you can send them my way.
I will. You know. Tell me about this podcast that you're starting with Aaron.
Okay. So the Change Agents Academy, as I mentioned, personal development program. Aaron Bear, who is a best-selling author, and he has his hands in so many different circles that I find really interesting. Biohacking, longevity, smart businessman, has like 6 master's degrees. he wrote this book called Exponential Theory, co-wrote it with another good friend of mine named Forbes Shannon. So they actually wrote that book at Chop Shop during the pandemic, in the Tempe ASU Chop Shop on the patio. They wrote the book, and the entire premise of the book is thinking bigger, and a lot of examples of people like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and people that had an idea that they didn't really see where it was going to end up today.
Oh, yeah.
But they just stayed the course and kept thinking, okay, what's my next step? Let's get to the ceiling and shatter the ceiling and then have proven us all what is possible, right?
Yeah.
So applying some of those principles to our, individual lives and providing some thought leadership and some practical exercises in the book that help you to recognize where you have a limiting belief, and recognize what your options are, think through what your options are to break through those barriers. So the book became a New York Times and an international bestseller. And from there, they took it and made it into the Change Agents Academy program.
Gotcha. Good.
So I was in the second cohort of the personal development program. Met some amazing people. Maria, my Superstition Ridgeline hiking buddy, that's where she and I met.
Gotcha.
And it's kind of stalled a little bit at this point because of lack of attention and focus on pursuing, growing the brand, mostly because Forbes has been offered some pretty awesome opportunities. Just got a gig with Rob Schneider. He's a stand-up comedian.
Yes,
they do the 100 Mile Brewing Company comedy show that you and I have talked about. So his career and where he really, wants to put his time and energy is taken off, which has left a gap in the Change Agents Academy.
Yeah.
So Aaron and I actually ran the last Spartan race together. And as we were running and talking, the opportunity for me to fill that gap became a possibility. And we've talked through a couple of times since then what that's going to look like for me. A little bit too soon for me to label anything, but one of the ways that I am making progress with that is taking ownership of the Change Agents Academy podcast. So I have two partners in that, both of whom I've known for almost a decade through Chop Shop channels as well, that are also currently going through the curriculum. And so we are meeting once a week to get our feet under us with the podcast, understand, what's the structure that we're creating this under. Really the hope for it is the vision that we have, more than hope, I guess, is to create conversations that people can connect with, probably point them back to the Change Agents Academy coursework and help them get involved in the program. I can't say enough about that just showed up for me at a time in my life where I've done a number of personal development programs, and I've gotten a lot out of all of them. But the way that Change Agents Academy is packaged and the exercises that you go through are so accessible, even when you're not sitting in a room full of people that are talking about change, right? It's easy to be motivated and inspired and think bigger when you're sitting in these workshops and you're,
of course,
your focus is 100%.
You feel the hum of the room.
Yeah. And you're like, I can do anything. But then, a week later when the hum is worn off, it's quieted down and you're back in the grind and, the electric bill and 5 gallons of water just spilled in your car and, things that happen every day.
Seems very specific.
Yeah. I don't know anything about that. It's harder to remember that feeling. And I think that the exercises that I left Change Agents Academy with when I finished that program, are ones that I think of more readily. And I've applied them to, I don't do them every day. I don't even do them every week. But when I find myself in a rut of unproductive thinking or thinking more about a problem than I am about how to solve the problem, I can pull those exercises out and I can I can get out of my head and more into the action of solving.
Yeah.
So the Change Agents Academy podcast, the vision there is that we create conversations that people can relate to and connect with. And then, they find value in enrolling in the Change Agents Academy coursework. And they're able to become change agents, which is essentially as simple as like, how do you want to show up to be the advocate for change in whatever way that looks like for you, right? Whether it's helping children or serving animals or whatever.
It's not going to be one size fits all.
Right.
You have to find where this person kind of fits and find their traits that you can really amplify. And that's going to be different for every person.
Yes.
And it's what's beneficial is to the people closest to that individual see that transformation and see what's possible. Then that opens the door to, you know, a few more people in their friend group, to just grow the community. Man, imagine a whole community of just people just getting after it, Well,
the vision is to create 1 million change agents.
Ooh, okay.
So, and that's exactly as you just said, is like it happens through people noticing when, they look to you and they're like, that guy knows how to diet, right? Like, but they also look to you and they say, like he does, what's that crazy ice cream run you did that you were telling me about?
Oh yeah. Out of spite. I don't know what I call it. It was supposed to be National Ice Cream Day.
Yes.
And I was supposed to go enjoy me some Andy's frozen custard, but they ghosted me because I called their frozen custard ice cream. So it became, let's go enjoy some Baskin Robbins. And on the way, I'll flip off every Andy's frozen custard location. I made it to all but 2.
Well, your motive might not have been inspirational.
Well, at
but
first
the
it
fact
was.
that you did it,
the follow through wasn't.
Okay, well,
at first I was like, hey, let's run to every Andy's and I'll promote their business and maybe they have a charity we can donate to. And then when they ghosted me, then it'd be like, hey, let's go ahead and run to every Baskin Robbins.
Yes.
And
which doesn't even open until
yeah, I was 24 miles in before I got to enjoy any ice cream, which is probably for the best. I mean, it was 115 degrees out, July 16th. Yeah, National Ice Cream Day.
That is so funny. Well, there were still people, like I took this away from that story more the spirit of determination than you had, than, that you were just flipping off all the Andy's frozen custard.
It's and I think I elaborated a little bit more when we talked, but when you do grueling physical tasks like that, your internal dialogue is crazy, and you either succumb to it or you change your perspective a bit, and run with it. So one of the main points that I kind of wanted to get across is I don't recommend stuff like that, right? I don't recommend you getting off the couch and trying to run 50 miles, kind of like I did. I was a little, I'm a little bit more active, of course, but I wasn't prepared to do 50 miles. I mean, my knee almost blew out, essentially. Right. This led to all kinds of things. But, there was the spectacle of it. Okay, here's this person like doing 50 miles. Maybe I could get out and do a half mile, 1 mile, something. If this guy's doing this, why can't I do just a little bit? So it allows moments to just become the spectacle, which I would never recommend, just to draw more eyes, right? Mm-hmm. To hey, this guy's moving, let me move some more. But also I'm like, how do I know what my limit is if I haven't pushed myself to it and past it? Which, I don't know, because at the end I was just walking. I only ran 17 miles and I had to walk the rest because my knee, I could not run anymore. My knee felt like it was going to explode. So I walked, but eventually my feet hurt. Every step was just daggers and daggers, and I gave up. But when I get home, I'm still walking. I could have kept going. I to who knows what end, and who knows how much worse off I would have been, because the fallout was tight, piriformis, sciatica pain like crazy for like 2 months, where, I lost my flexibility, which to me, that's the heart of my fitness and health and longevity is my flexibility. Right. So it was definitely a big learning experience and a story.
Yeah. Well, people pay attention to those, right?
Yeah.
Like they pay attention. Everybody's going to get something different out of what they perceive of your journey. Mm-hmm. So, really have any control over that, but people pay attention. Yeah. So when you are doing something that looks hard to somebody else, or, maybe they didn't think that was a possibility, and then they see that you do it.
Yeah. It's like, X Games, skateboarding, BMX, snowboarding. The first time you saw a guy do a 720, like two spins around, you were like, whoa, what the heck? Now it's in the zeitgeist. Now everybody can see how it's done. It's capable. You're capable of it. And now it's like someone doing a 720 is just, regular stuff. Like, yeah. Especially with like Instagram these days, you're seeing people do all kinds of crazy fitness things, music, capabilities like that. So once someone achieves it, for some reason, it's easier for us to be able to replicate. I mean, we can now with stuff where you can slow down and stop videos and, you can dissect the video so you can really figure out how someone's doing it. But even before that, watching someone do it tells you, okay, it's possible. This person did it, so I can find a way to do it as well. So that's just so beneficial to allow people to see that. And what I like to do too is also share where I fail at that. I posted, I was 2 months into stand up and I posted a video of me bombing like comedy wise, with my jokes. And I think there was a minute and like 30 seconds of dead air where people were supposed to be laughing, but they weren't. It was just dead air.
Is that cumulative or is that in one?
No. Yeah, it would have been cumulative. So in a 5-minute set, a minute and a half of it was just dead air after I delivered my punchline. So not dead silence because I'm talking so they're listening. No. It was about a minute.
I love that you shared that though.
Yeah, because you got to see it. It sucks. But, everybody shares, where I'm really knocking it out of the park and this and that. And it's great. Obviously, we want to see that too. But I gained a whole lot from finding out how the sausage is made. So, because then it's like, okay, well, don't do that or learn from that, and then if I see someone doing that, and be like, and they still went after.
Yeah,
it. Like back to the X Games thing, like skateboarders are some of the most determined people in general. To try and land one trick, they'll try it 1,000 times.
Get bruised and break legs and yep.
Yeah, it's there. There's the determination. So that's the inspiration. The rebirth. Your rebirth, that's the inspiration.
The confidence that you give other people to try, right? Mm-hmm. Because you try and fail and you do so publicly. I mean, I think that's part of my rebirth right now is being more concerned with how I am impacting other people than I am in what their opinions are of me, right? So I love that you shared that story about sharing bombing on stage because like that's very relevant to what I'm working through right now.
Yeah, well, we all bomb in our own avenues. So you got the podcast, you got that, but let's pivot to your book. So where is this? I did not expect you to say, "Hey, I got a book coming out,"
yes.
or I would have liked to release a book.
I will write this book.
Yes, you will.
So the book is about my dog. It's going to be a children's book. And I bought the domain name in like 2015, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
My dog's name is Quinn, the Buttercup Princess, and she is the princess of pretty much everything. She runs the household. I just pay the bills here. And so the book is called The Princess of Pretty Much Everything. So I have a bunch of the script, the copy is written for it. I don't have an illustrator.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I stalled out. And also got really busy running all the restaurants. And when we started opening new restaurants in 2017, I just took my eye off the book ball and put it onto the restaurant ball. So, but I actually looked at the copyright or the domain name the other day to see, if somebody else had grabbed it, because it expired, my right to that name had expired. So I bought it again. So
yeah, go. Yeah. Just keep that on renew. Bringing
it back to the surface. I think, I don't know if it's going to be, a big hit or not, but I'm excited about yeah.
It's like me doing my t-shirt design things. Yeah. I'm like, eventually I'll release this or something, but you got to get it out. You got to just do it. I can sense by the way you're talking about it. Your eyes light up when you're talking about your pup and getting that, getting it out, materializing it. Whether it becomes a hit or whatever that is in your own mind.
Yeah. Again, not important, right? Yeah. It's now I've published a book
yes.
And I can tell other people about the process of publishing a book. I actually did publish a journal on Amazon just because I saw a video about that.
Yeah.
I thought, all right, how hard can that be? A little bit harder than I expected it to be, but easier than people probably expect. So,
yeah. I thought about that the other day where somebody had mentioned that. I don't know where. I failed to remember why, but you bringing this up, I was like, man, how hard is it to just find a publisher? I don't think it's not hard, right?
No. Amazon makes it super easy.
Oh, I would imagine. Yeah, that's right. Because the drop ship era.
Yes. I mean, it depends on the content. If you're trying to do an ebook or something, you can do all that through Amazon for almost no cost. If you want it to be, if you're trying to publish like a
the
bestseller book,
paperback,
right,
hardback,
that's probably a little bit more complex. But again, it's a couple of conversations with people that, like, hey, do you know any publishers? And somebody's going to know a publisher, right? If you ask the question enough times or do enough Google searches and get a name and look somebody up on LinkedIn or however persistent you want to be about getting the thing that you want, like you'll get there.
Yeah. And so do you have to what's the word where you get a group of people in to like test the product?
Like market research?
Yeah, I guess market research on that. If you're going to go like the printed, so see what kids think about it. Because my kids love to read, and my daughter's middle name is Quinn. So,
interesting. Yeah. Okay, well, she will love this book then.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't have an answer for that, but I will say in that same podcast that I listened to 7 times, and thought there were so many gold nuggets in there. Another thing that he said that we're actually applying to Life Skills Lab as well. If you have an idea for anything, a new business, a book, whatever it might be, before you go and do all of the work to create the business and get the LLC and the funding and buy the laptops and the office space and, then you make all of this effort and you put this out there and you find people don't really respond to it. It didn't add the value that you thought it would. That an idea would be to start either one or both of these two. You just create a landing page and you say, join the discussion group. So Quinn, the Buttercup Princess, the princess of pretty much everything, is coming to books everywhere soon, right? Like, what do you think Quinn's going to do? And then you get, maybe that's marketed to a certain age group, right? Like kids, right? Kids that can type. And so they tell you all the ideas that they think the adventures of Quinn, the Buttercup Princess, is going to be into. So a little bit more about, like, I don't want to say that my ideas are going to be dictated by what other people tell me they want.
Yeah.
Because it's important that they're my ideas and I'm not just speaking to the masses depends on what my motive is. If it's to make a whole bunch of money, then it's probably going to be listening to the kids. If it's to follow my creative pursuits, it's going to be what I want it to be about. Yeah. And then just trust the process. Adds the value that it's supposed to. But for a business and for, like Life Skills Lab, we've got 2 ways that we're doing this. We have a join the waiting list button, which creates a little bit of excitement, generates, it gives us an idea of who might be interested in Life Skills Lab. Yeah. Helps us to understand whether the idea has legs or whether we're putting a whole lot of effort into something that the community is not going to find valuable, right? And creates a little bit of scarcity mindset. So when people see, I'm going to join the waiting list for this, they, in the back of their minds, they're like, this might not be available. Like, I got to get on the waiting. Elon did this, right? He did it with everything. Yeah. And his flamethrower and, whatever ideas. Yeah, exactly. But he joined he said, Elon, has a little bit more visibility and clout than
for sure
I do at this point. But, it worked for him, and Rolex does the same thing. So there's that. And then also join the discussion group. Very important for Life Skills Lab, because while we've got ideas, like I said, there's 41 courses that we already have created for Life Skills Lab workshops and classrooms. But that was created in 2021, which isn't too far in the past to not have relevance to today, but also would be awesome to understand what teachers and parents and, employers of first-time employees feel is lacking in their kids, right? Like when they get to the workplace. I'll never forget this moment where I was a store manager with Starbucks at this point, and I had a brand new kid, like first job. And there were two specific instances that stood out to me. One around sweeping the floor, which was an absolute foreign concept to this kid. Nicest kid you ever met, like absolutely no shade on the kid, but he could not figure out how to hold a broom. So I had to teach him how to hold the broom. And then maybe a couple of days later, we were in the back room and the dishwasher had two settings, on and start. That's it, on and start. It was a sanitizer machine. So you had to wash the dishes and then it sanitized them at high heat so that they were, sanitary. But literally just stared at the machine for more seconds than was comfortable for me. And I was like, what's your question? He's like, how do you work it? I'm like, well, do you want to turn it on or do you want to start it? He's like, I want to wash the dishes. I was like, press the start button. But never had, he obviously did not do dishes at home. Nobody had equipped him with any sort of practical skills. So that, I think part of where I thought there was so much value in Life Skills Lab is that I've been, the last decade has been more in leading leaders than it has been leading the frontline employees. But I've had enough interactions with people, that are new to the workforce, or maybe they are a single mom, right? That just got divorced and has had no control over her finances, right? Like my mom and my parents just divorced in 2020. And my mother she didn't even know how to log into her bank account, let alone how to manage investments, how to run the household finances, right? Because my dad had been doing that for the last 40 years.
So you had your first client.
So I had my first, and I was outraged by that. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, how did you not think this was, I love my mother. We're beyond this at this point, but I was so frustrated that that wasn't anything that she had.
Because you would think too, if they raised a daughter that was so, bang, like I'm my own person, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm in the leadership roles, I'm handling all my stuff, and then you realize that your mom didn't have any of the same tools that they equipped you with. You're like, hold on. Yeah. What's going on
And
here?
as I've met so many women now in the last 10 months that I've been out of the food and beverage industry, and I've been in networking and, meeting small business owners, so many women in particular, but not just women that just are financially illiterate and they don't know.
No, my ex-wife's stepdad was, I think he dropped out in third grade. He dropped out in third grade and just did, not even handyman, just more janitorial services, custodial services. And, when, her mom passed away, he was just like, I don't know what to do. The paycheck would go to her mom. She would handle all the bills. She would give him money to spend. And he just would go to work, come home, hang out, drink a beer, wake up the next morning, do it again. Like he handled nothing, and it definitely happens to dudes for sure.
Yeah. It happens to a lot of people. And a lot of that, we're hoping to make it more mainstream, I guess, in I don't know if it'll ever be taught as curriculum in school.
And some people might argue, do you want it to be taught, in schools from the government per se, right? From public school system? You would want it to, for sure. But that's where you come in.
Yeah. I mean, in the gap between what is currently available and accessible to mostly young adults, we're focusing on, focusing immediately on underprivileged demographics, and young adults and teens. But ultimately, I think where this ends up, the vision for 5 years from now is that we've got a facility and we're offering to anybody that's interested in learning more about finances or about their insurance or, any number of the ways that we can help people close the gap between what they learn and what they don't know.
I love it.
So,
Bethany, you're badass. I love what you're doing.
Thanks.
Any other nuggets of knowledge you want to drop on our listeners here at the end?
I don't know. I think we've covered a lot of ground, right?
I think we did. I definitely want all your links so I can appropriately put the show notes, where people can get, access to the groups, podcasts, your life coaching, all that stuff. And if people want to follow you online, what's your preferred?
I'm one of my goals, I guess, my priorities for the immediate future is to become more active on social media. I don't do a whole lot there, but Instagram is my go-to. So Bethany Lynn 22 is my Instagram handle. I'm also on Facebook. My name is Bethany Graver on Facebook. So I don't do the TikTok thing or the Snapchat. So Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn are where I show up the most often.
Sweet. Yeah, I would assume, I would say, and I don't do TikTok and I don't know how I feel about it entirely, right? But
Same.
You guys are providing such a great product that it should be on TikTok. So you can infiltrate, some of the nonsense that can be found. And then listen, I'm a big fan of nonsense myself, but there's a balance, guys. Okay.
Exactly.
there has to be a balance.
Agree.
So I would say as your coaching practice, probably start that, would be my only business advice to you.
Thank you. Yes. No, I'll take it. Thank you.
I appreciate you setting some time aside, coming on. I love what you're about. So
thank you.
Guys, follow Bethany and all her amazing work. And thanks for tuning in. Until next time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Juan.